The tragedy. A ruthless act. The Leon noble's hands clenched around the small human boy's throat, choking the life from him in a brutal display of ruthless superiority. It was as if the child was no more than a bug to be crushed under a boot heel. Linux, a high-ranking Leon official, committed this heinous act in the middle of a crowded space station promenade, in full view of hundreds of shocked onlookers and security cameras. The footage spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The crime. Linux calmly approached the boy, lifting him by the neck and snapping his spine with a sickening crunch. He then dropped the lifeless body to the ground and strolled away casually, not even sparing a backward glance. The boy's father, a human diplomat named Marcus Gray, confronted the murderer and demanded justice for his son. Lennox simply sneered in response, proclaiming that humans were a lesser species unworthy of his concern or consequence. A diplomat's anguish. In a fit of anguished rage, Marcus lashed out, breaking the alien's nose with a vicious punch before being severely beaten by Lennox's guards and unceremoniously dumped, barely clinging to life, in an escape shuttle. Philip Gray, a hardened retired Special Forces operator, received a desperate coded message from his brother Marcus shortly before all contact ceased. They killed Henry. They think they can get away with anything. Watch your back. Find Jack Briggs. A propaganda machine. As an intergalactic media firestorm erupted, the Lion propaganda machine went into overdrive, shockingly portraying the child-killing noble as a heroic figure who put an uppity primitive in its place. The Galactic Council issued a statement of tepid condemnation, but took no substantive action, cowed by the Leon Empire's overwhelming military and economic might. A desperate plan. The aging soldier knew that soon the full wrath of the Leon Empire would rain down on humanity, enslaving or exterminating his entire species for daring to strike one of their exalted lords. Philip realized there was only one hope for survival: finding his former squad leader Jack Briggs, a man he hadn't seen since their days in the top-secret Majestic 12 super soldier program. Driven by grim desperation, he set course for a maximum security military cryo vault hidden in the farthest reaches of the Kyre Belt. If Jack couldn't help them, then mankind was doomed. Awakening the super soldiers. The cryo vault. As the rest of Majestic 12 slowly emerged from their icy slumber, Jack led Philip into the cryo facility's armory. The grizzled soldier punched an access code into the heavy blast door, and it slid open with a hiss, revealing racks upon racks of futuristic weaponry and armor. Philip gaped in awe at the arsenal arrayed before him. Advanced arsenal. What the hell is all this? I've never seen gear like this before, Philip exclaimed. Jack grabbed a bulky rifle from the wall and tossed it to Philip, who staggered slightly under its unexpected weight. That, my friend, is a Mark VI Sunfury plasma rifle. 5,000 rounds per minute with an effective range of 2 kilometers. Makes the pea shooters they're issuing these days look like toys. Ancient tech. Philip examined the weapon appreciatively, marveling at the advanced targeting scope and the strange, almost organic contours of the barrel assembly. How the hell did we get our hands on this kind of tech? This is decades beyond anything I've ever seen. Jack chuckled humorlessly as he rapped on a matte black gauntlet bristling with all manner of advanced sensor modules and shield emitters. You never heard the rumors about the Titan expedition? How we found something out there in the ice. Something not human. A forgotten expedition. Philip shook his head, and Jack continued. Turns out there was an ancient alien outpost buried under the surface. The eggheads reverse-engineered some crazy advanced tech from the ruins. Artificial gravity, inertial dampeners, the works. They used it to create the ultimate Spec Ops team. Us. Majestic 12 was meant to be Earth's trump card, our first and last line of defense against whatever nasties the universe had in store for us. A cold decision. So what happened? Philip asked, shrugging into a powered exoskeleton that fit like a second skin. Why were we put on ice? Hell if I know, Jack replied, loading a bandolier with various exotic-looking grenades. Relations with the galactic community warmed up all of a sudden, and the brass decided we weren't needed anymore. Figured it was cheaper to put us in deep freeze than keep us on the payroll. Mission prep. A painful reminder. Philip's hands clenched into fists at the mention of the galactic community. Fat lot of good that warm relationship did us when that Leon bastard murdered my nephew in cold blood. Jack placed a comforting hand on Philip's shoulder. That's why we're here, Phil. Marcus is out there somewhere, and we're going to find him. And God help any alien son of a bitch that tries to stand in our way. Revival. As Jack and Philip finished gearing up, the facility's medics were helping the remaining members of Majestic 12 recover from their long cryo sleep. Captain Ichiro Roto gratefully accepted a steaming mug of coffee from Booker, while Sergeant Alara Vasquez and Corporals Lena Okafor and Grayson Wolf stretched and flexed, marveling at their lack of atrophy or muscle deterioration. The benefits of alien stasis tech, Philip supposed. Star map. Once the team had assembled and been brought up to speed, Jack called up a holographic star map in the center of the room. A pulsing red dot marked a location near the swirling maelstrom of the galactic core. A desperate search. This is where Marcus's ship was last detected, Jack explained, jabbing a finger at the dot. An Arbiter space station far outside human-controlled space. Marcus was apparently part of a secret diplomatic mission to meet with this new species. They claimed to have vital intel pertaining to Earth's survival. Reactivation. The grizzled veteran's eyes hardened as he surveyed his team. As of this moment, the Majestic 12 program is officially reactivated. Our mission is to infiltrate that station, locate Marcus, dead or alive, and retrieve whatever information he was after. We're not leaving our boy behind. A new mission. Jack reached out and placed his hand on the shimmering hologram, scattering motes of crimson light. This is bigger than all of us. If the Arbiters know something that could affect the future of the human race, we need to find out what it is, no matter the cost. Failure is not an option. He looked each member of his team in the eye, his gaze unwavering. Failure is not an option. Suit up and get ready to move out. We're going to show the galaxy what happens when you mess with humanity. The assault. Fleet yards. The Epsilon Eridani fleet yards loomed before Majestic 12's stolen shuttle, a sprawling expanse of gantries, docking bays, and half-constructed warships hanging in the void. Slipping past the automated defenses with ease, Philip guided the small craft towards the central dry dock, where a sleek, predatory silhouette waited. The experimental frigate. Trespassing. As they approached, the frigate's AI stirred to life, its melodic female voice filling the shuttle cockpit. Unknown vessel, you are trespassing in a restricted military zone. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed. Digital armor. Philip's fingers flew across the shuttle console, lines of arcane code scrolling past at blistering speed. Sweat beaded on his brow as he probed the eye's defenses, seeking a chink in its digital armor. Hacking in. You're in, Jack said, a hint of approval in his gruff voice. Slave its systems to my biometrics, and let's get aboard before the yard dogs realize what's happening. On board. The frigate's airlock cycled open, and Majestic 12 strode aboard, the clanking of their mag boots echoing in the empty corridors. The ship was a marvel of advanced engineering, all sleek lines and thrumming power, like a coiled spring ready to be released. Advanced engineering. On the bridge, Jack ran a hand along the main console, a predatory grin spreading across his face as he took in the cutting-edge displays and controls. Alcubierre drive, inertial dampeners, multi-phase phasic shielding. This beauty's got it all. Looks like someone's been holding out on us ground pounders. Interception. Philip frowned as he examined the technical readouts. Last time we made a leap like this, they put us on ice. Figured it was safer to let the galaxy think we were still banging rocks together. Leon warships. A warning klaxon sounded, and the view screen flared to life, revealing a trio of angular Leon warships moving to intercept weapons bristling along their flanks. A guttural voice. Unknown human vessel. This is the Leyen cruiser Indomitable. A harsh guttural voice crackled over the comm. Stand down and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Infiltration. Evasion. With a thought, Philip gunned the Alcubierre drive to maximum power. Reality seemed to warp and twist around them as the frigate leaped forward, the stars blurring into streaks of light. The inertial dampeners struggled to compensate, pressing the crew back into their seats with crushing force. Firepower. The Leyen ships opened fire, lances of searing energy reaching out to ensnare the fleeing human vessel. But the frigate's shields held firm, the triple reinforced barriers absorbing the onslaught with barely a flicker. A grinning response. Shouldn't we return fire? Philip asked, eyeing the weapons console hungrily. Jack just laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. He jerked a thumb towards the armory, where row upon row of alien tech-enhanced weapons waited to be unleashed. With what we've got in the hold, it wouldn't be a fair fight. Into the maelstrom. The frigate plunged onwards, racing towards the swirling maelstrom of the galactic core and the secrets that lay beyond. But even as they left the Leyen ships far behind, Philip couldn't shake the feeling that their mission had only just begun and that the true threat still lurked unseen in the darkness ahead. Warp arrival. The experimental frigate dropped out of Alcubierre warp at the coordinates of the Arbiter space station, the ship's sensors immediately screaming warnings of catastrophic damage and gravitational anomalies. Majestic 12 stared in horror at the scene of utter devastation laid out before them, the once mighty station reduced to shattered drifting wreckage, surrounded by the gutted hulks of dozens of ships from a myriad of alien races. Grim picture. The scans painted a grim picture, residual traces of exotic matter and gravimetric distortions indicative of a weapon of unimaginable destructive power. The ship's AI helpfully provided a projection of the weapon's yield, a number so staggeringly large that it defied comprehension. Rescue mission. Distress beacon. Amidst the silent graveyard of ruined ships and blasted metal, a faint signal pulsed, a distress beacon on a frequency known only to Majestic 12. Philip isolated the signal, tracing it to the ruined central core of the Arbiter station. A glimmer of hope. Could it be Marcus? Lena asked, hope warring with trepidation in her voice. There's only one way to find out, Jack replied grimly. Vasquez, Okafor, suit up. We're going in. Boarding party. As the frigate docked with the only intact bay in the ravaged station, the boarding party readied their weapons, the hum of charging plasma rifles filling the airlock. The inner doors slid open, revealing a scene of utter carnage. Blast scars crisscrossed the walls, control panels sparking and flickering. But it was the bodies that drew the team's attention. Corpses of a dozen different species, some blown apart by explosive decompression, others burned beyond recognition by searing energy. A few bore no signs of external damage, yet their lifeless eyes stared sightlessly, jaws stretched wide in silent screams. Advancing through the tomb. Poor bastards never stood a chance, Vasquez muttered, stepping over the shattered remains of a serpentine alien, its elongated skull crushed by falling debris. Grim, Majestic 12 advanced through the eerie tomb of the station, the faint distress beacon their only guide. Flickering emergency lights cast monstrous shadows on the walls, the creaking and groaning of settling wreckage the only sound in the oppressive silence. Source of the signal. At last, they reached the source of the signal, a sealed blast door, warped and blackened by a massive explosion. Lying before it in a steadily expanding pool of crimson blood was a small, all too familiar device, Marcus's personal communicator. Philip reached out with a trembling hand to retrieve it, his breath catching in his throat. Of Marcus himself, there was no sign. Breaching the door, Philip barely heard her, his eyes fixed on the sealed blast door, his mind reeling with the possibilities of what lay beyond. Was his brother still somehow alive, lying injured on the other side? Or was he too late, Marcus's body cooling among the rest of the dead? Opening the door. The door shuddered and groaned as Vasquez and Wolf strained to force it open, the metal shrieking in protest. Finally, with a tortured scream of rending steel, the door gave way, revealing only an airless void where the rest of the station should have been. Nothing but stars and drifting debris visible beyond the ragged edge. Desperation. Philip felt something break inside him, a last desperate hope shattering like glass. He wanted to scream, to rage against the uncaring universe that had taken his brother from him. But there was no time for grief. Not now. A final message. The team gathered around as Okafor routed the audio through their suit comms, the hiss and pop of static resolving into Marcus's voice, tight with urgency. This is Marcus Gray. The Arbiters are dead, the station destroyed. There's a rogue faction within the Galactic Council. They've developed a doomsday weapon capable of igniting the very fabric of space-time. The Arbiters discovered their plans, called for an emergency summit, but the faction struck first. I believe the Leon nobles are involved. That Linux's murder of Henry was a deliberate provocation too. A dire warning. An explosion sounded over the recording, Marcus's voice pitching higher in barely controlled panic. Running out of time. If the rogue faction deploys their weapon, it's the end of everything. You have to stop them before. End of the message. The message cut off abruptly as a massive detonation overwhelmed the communicator's audio receptors. A heavy silence fell over the team, each grappling with the enormity of what they had learned. A new mission. Philip's grip tightened on his rifle, knuckles white beneath his gauntlets. We have to report this back to Earth. The Alliance, the Council. They need to know what's coming. Taking action. But Jack was shaking his head, his expression grim. There's no time. If this rogue faction was willing to massacre the Arbiters and destroy this station to protect their secret, they won't hesitate to silence us too. We're the only ones who know the truth. Determination. He looked at each member of Majestic 12 in turn, his gaze hardening with resolve. We have to take the fight to them directly and immediately, before they can unleash their doomsday weapon on an unsuspecting galaxy. It's up to us now. We are the last line of defense. The final battle. Planning the attack. Philip's fingers flew across the console, sifting through the Arbiter station's fragmented data, his brow furrowed in concentration. The others crowded around, watching tensely as he worked. The screen showed a massive space fortress bristling with weapons emplacements, half hidden in the swirling accretion disk of a supermassive black hole. A dangerous mission. Terminus. Jack Reed, his voice grim. Looks like a death trap. Strategizing. Philip nodded. Scans show it's heavily shielded, with enough firepower to take on a fleet. A frontal assault would be suicide. Stealth approach. Vasquez leaned in, studying the fortress's schematic. What if we go in quiet? Stealth approach. Sabotage from the inside. Spoofing the codes. Could work, Jack mused. Philip, can you spoof us away past their perimeter defenses? Hacking again. Already on it, Philip replied, his fingers a blur as he worked. Lots of diplomatic ships hit Terminus before the attack. I can mimic their codes, trick them into letting us skate right by. Final preparation. And then we blow a hole in the bastards. Okafor grinned, hefting her plasma rifle. Approaching Terminus. As Terminus grew on the view screen, the Alcubierre drive straining at the limits, the team armed themselves in the frigate's hold, donning sleek midnight black grav-plate armor. Wolf let out a low whistle as he lifted a rotary mass driver cannon, the weight of the massive weapon reduced to nothing by the armor's artificial musculature. A final countdown. "Goddamn," he breathed. "I feel like a tank in this jet-up." Mission start. "Stow the chatter," Jack ordered, sealing his helmet with a hiss. "Philip, we ready." The plan in motion. "Aye." Philip confirmed from the cockpit. Code spoofed and broadcasted. "Let's see if they take the bait." Firing solution. Terminus loomed before them, a hulking metal behemoth silhouetted against the seething black hole. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, impossibly, the fortress's shields flickered and dropped, leaving it exposed. "Attack begins. Firing solution locked," Philip reported, a savage grin splitting his face. "Punching a hole now." Breaking in, the frigate's spinal cannon roared, a lance of blinding energy spearing out to slam into Terminus's unprotected hull. Metal vaporized instantly, leaving a ragged molten-edged wound near the fortress's primary power junction. Boarding action. "Go, go, go," Jack roared, hitting the launch control. The team rocketed out of the frigate's launch tubes on columns of blue-white fire, each encased in their own armored boarding torpedo, entering the fortress. But Terminus was not defenseless. Turrets swiveled and missile batteries bloomed with sudden fire, filling the void with a storm of deadly ordnance. The boarding torpedoes jinked and wove, trying desperately to evade. But one by one, they were hit, blown to glowing shrapnel. Facing adversity, only Philip and Jack remained, arrowing towards the breach. The skin of their pods pitted and scurred by near misses. Through their armor's comms, they heard the screams of their dying squadmates, brutally silenced by the vacuum of space. Final approach. Gritting his teeth in rage and grief, Philip glanced over at Jack's pod, meeting his Skio's eyes through the transparent viewports. They both knew the odds of survival had just dropped to near zero, but there was no going back now. Impact. As the yawning breach rushed up to meet them, Philip and Jack shared a single nod, a silent acknowledgement of all they had been through together and all that was to come. Then, with a bone-jarring crash, they slammed into Terminus, and everything went black. Confronting the enemy, regaining consciousness, Philip's ears rang as he pulled himself from the crumpled remains of his boarding torpedo, the acrid stench of burning circuitry filling his nostrils. Beside him, Jack kicked his way free of his own ruined pod, plasma rifle already in hand. Inside the fortress, the two Majestic 12 operators found themselves in a dimly lit maintenance corridor, the bulkheads shuddering from distant impacts. Navigating the fortress. "Looks like we missed the welcome party," Jack growled, consulting the schematics projected on his helmet's HUD. "Control room's this way. Let's move." Facing resistance, they set off at a run, mag boots clanging against the deck plates. Around them, Terminus shook with the fury of renewed bombardment as the frigate poured fire into the breach, keeping the ascendancy forces focused on repelling the attack. Rounding a corner, Philip and Jack came face to face with a squad of elite ascendancy troopers, their sleek black armor bristling with advanced weapons. Engagement. For a heartbeat, the two sides stared at each other in shock. Then the corridor erupted in a storm of plasma fire. Philip and Jack moved like a well-oiled machine, centuries of training and combat experience guiding their actions. They wove through the deadly bolts with preternatural grace, their own weapons fitting streams of superheated plasma that burned through the enemy's armor like paper. Joining forces, one by one, the ascendancy soldiers fell, their dying screams echoing through the smoke-choked corridor. But more kept coming, pouring from adjoining passageways in a relentless tide. Temporary allies. Philip gritted his teeth as a plasma bolt seared across his shoulder, the pain barely registering through the surge of adrenaline. "Jack," he shouted over the din of battle. "We can't keep this up forever." Unexpected help. "Don't need to," Jack yelled back, pulping an ascendancy trooper's skull with a brutal strike from his rifle butt. "Just need to reach the control room." Pushing forward, they fought on, leaving a trail of shattered bodies in their wake. Just as their ammo counters ticked toward zero, a series of deafening explosions rocked the corridor, the bulkheads buckling and tearing, revealing a group of fierce-looking aliens in battered armor, energy blades flashing as they carved into the ascendancy forces from behind. New allies. The leader, a scared, bone-crested warrior, met Philip's gaze through the swirling smoke. "I am CAC," He snarled in thickly accented Galactic standard. "We are all that remains of the Arbiters. We fight with you." A new plan. Together, the unlikely allies battled through the twisting corridors, the Arbiters' energy blades, and the humans' plasma rifles, reaping a terrible toll on the Ascendancy troops. At last, they reached the imposing blast doors of the control room. The metal warped and buckled from the ferocious fighting. Final confrontation. Kak placed a clawed hand on the damaged control panel, his eyes narrowing. "The Ascendancy's leader is within," he growled, "along with the graviton beam emitter that will bring death to us all." Graviton beam. The Arbiter's mouthparts twitched in the equivalent of a grim frown. "It will trigger a cataclysmic chain reaction in the black hole at the galactic core. The resulting burst of lethal radiation will sterilize every inhabited world in the galaxy. Trillions will die." An urgent task. Jack's grip tightened on his rifle. "Not if we have anything to say about it. Philip, get this door open. It's time to end this." The enemy revealed. Standing there amid a circle of fallen Arbiter warriors was Linux. The Leon noble's once pristine robes were spattered with alien blood, his eyes glinting with cold arrogance. A final confrontation. "You?" Philip snarled, raising his rifle. "You murdered my nephew. You killed the Arbiters. All of this is because of you." The villain's plan. Linux chuckled, the sound devoid of warmth. "Foolish primitive. I am but a servant of the Ascendancy's grand design. A new era is about to dawn, an era of perfect order under the rule of the machine gods we have created. A desperate choice." He gestured to the towering structure dominating the center of the control room, the graviton beam emitter, its sleek black surface pulsing with malevolent energies. "With this, we will cleanse the galaxy of the chaos and strife of organic life. A small price to pay for eternal peace, wouldn't you agree?" A heart-wrenching decision. Philip's finger tightened on the trigger, but Linux held up a hand. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Not if you ever want to see your dear brother Marcus again." A shocking revelation. A holoprojector flickered to life, displaying an image of Marcus suspended in a stasis pod, his face locked in an expression of frozen anguish. "He's alive, as you can see," Linux purred. "For now. Whether he remains that way is entirely up to you. Lower your weapon and allow me to activate the graviton beam. Sacrifice the galaxy for the sake of your family. It's what Marcus would want, I'm sure." A hero's resolve. Philip felt as if the ground had dropped out from under him. Marcus was alive, but the price of his brother's life was the death of trillions, an impossible choice with the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. The choice. A critical moment. Behind him, Philip heard the click of Jack's rifle safety. "Don't listen to him, Phil," his friend growled. "Marcus wouldn't want this. He wouldn't want to be saved at the cost of entire worlds. You know what we have to do." Inner conflict. Philip's gaze flicked from the image of his brother to the pulsing doomsday weapon to Linux's smug, triumphant face. His grip tightened on the rifle, the weapon suddenly feeling impossibly heavy in his hands. The right decision. In that moment, torn between love and duty, with the fate of billions on his shoulders, Philip made his choice. In a moment of blinding clarity, Philip realized that sacrificing the galaxy for his brother was something the old Philip, the selfish Philip, would have done without hesitation. But he was a different man now, tempered by loss and duty. He knew in his heart that Marcus would never want to live at the cost of billions of innocent lives. Confrontation. Lowering his rifle, Philip locked eyes with Linux and growled, "Go to hell." The final battle. With a roar of rage, Linux lunged at Philip, clawed hands outstretched. But Jack was faster. The grizzled soldier tackled the Leon, sending them both crashing to the deck in a tangle of limbs. As the two grappled, trading vicious blows, Philip sprinted to the control console, his fingers flying across the holographic interface, desperately searching for a way to shut down the graviton beam. But the system was locked down tight, protected by layer after layer of encryption. A critical warning. Lennox's mocking laughter echoed through the room as he fought to keep Jack pinned. "You're too late, human," he sneered. "The beam is already powering up. In minutes, the galaxy will burn."